Hello, this is going to be my general mage guide. This is just for starting out mage, learning the class, learning what the spells do, things like that. First, we're going to start with the useless spells, the ones that you don't have to learn. The ones that, in all honesty, are just trash, plain trash. To start out this list, we have Fire 1. Now, Fire 1, it travels fast, it does low damage. Why is it useless? Because if you want a long-range pull, Frost 1 is better. It gives a slow and does the same range. That's just the reason for it. Next would be, weirdly enough, Fire 3. It's hard to cast, it takes time, if I can even get it. Fine, I'll actually draw it legit. And I cannot cast today. There we go. That took way too long. Why is this bad? It takes a while to cast, and while you can cast it at like 1, maybe 2 a second if you're like really good at it, its range is so short. It's so short. Fire 2 is so much faster, and it can get way, way farther. Meaning, more range, meaning you have more time to kill something before it kills you. Next is obviously the miscellaneous spells, the ones that literally do nothing. Fireworks. The most important spell, let's be honest, but in combat, it does nothing. It just makes a nice firework. Next would be light, and light's like, oh, well, that could be useful. It's not. There is no place in this game that is so dark that you need light to see. There's only been 1, maybe 2 dungeons. Actually, scratch that. 3 dungeons in the entire game that have ever been dark to the point where using light would help you see more. All 3 of those dungeons, old game Mayo's Sanctum, old game Desert Crypt, and before they changed the lighting in Abandoned Mines to suit a player's needs, they were all dark, but you didn't need light to see them. The only thing it's good for is if you have a J-ball. If you have a J-ball, suddenly your light turns pink. It's nice and cool. The next worst spell, at least in my opinion, is honestly Frost 3. And I know I'm a blasphemer for saying that. How dare Frost 3 be bad? But even though it doesn't suffer from the same problems as Fire 3, the issue is it has diminishing returns. If you keep stacking Frost 3s on an enemy, it'll slow down till it's about a Frost 2 speed, and Frost 3 will not give a bigger buff than Frost 2. And then keep this in mind. If you have any rotation mage in your dungeon, Frost 3 is automatically void, as that mage will not sacrifice his tile sets for a slow if the tank is kiting. Frost 2 does the job just fine, and it's way easier to cast. Next would be Push 2. I know, all of the 3D spells rank really low. Why is this one awful? Well, there's only one situation in which it's good, is if 2 things have to be interrupted at once. Say there's a group over there that has 2 link shielders in the same group, and they link shield each other. Push 2 can get both interrupts at the same time, which is really good. However, keep in mind that that's the only situation in which it's good. You can only push 2 things, like push back, a number of times before it does nothing but interrupt. And while it's an AoE pushback, elites are not pushed back at all, bosses are not pushed back at all, they just get interrupted. So you're better off just using a push 1 in every other circumstance, unless you're memeing, and then push 2 is king. Well, queen, right behind Polymorph, which, in my opinion, is the next worst spell. Polymorph, what it does is it transforms an enemy into a polymorphed enemy, a chicken. So I can't actually hit anything that's polymorphable from here, as they are elites. You cannot polymorph elites at all. Non-elites you can, though. I can actually show this by going to Graveyard and going to the start of the dungeon, as there are polymorphable enemies here. So you see all of those are non-elites. You throw a polymorph at one, and it becomes a chicken. For a set amount of time that does, I believe, at least as far as I know, have diminishing returns, that enemy cannot do anything. The con, when it returns, it is at full health. So if something was about to die and it gets polymorphed, well, you gotta kill that enemy again. It's like it rezzed, except it didn't. Let's see, going to my spells. I don't know them all by heart, as only the most... Oh, Affliction 1, it's useless. Affliction 2 is just better. Casting Affliction 1, why cast Affliction 1 when you can cast Affliction 2? That's just the plain and simple of it. Arcane Ray. That's Arcane Bomb. I don't know why that happens. That always happens for me. I don't know why. Arcane Ray does little damage, doesn't last long, and is only good with True Affliction. The non-meta talent. The one that makes you do low damage. Ice Lance. Still can do respectable damage, but they nerfed it since old game. It's not very good anymore. It used to hit multiple times. Now it doesn't, and now it actually sucks. It does do more damage against those who have frost on them, but it's not as much as like a fireball twice. You're better off just spamming fireball. That ends the bad spells. And you may be asking, well, what about Mana Shield? Mana Shield sucks. It's like the worst spell. It does like nothing. Not true. Depending on your armor stat, it gives damage reduction, basically, as it's basically a function of the armor stat. Mana Shield is easy to cast, lasts a really long time, and on tanks can be up to 8% damage reduction. Even more if they're a paladin with, say, a talent that gives them 50% more armor. Mana Shield can give extreme damage reductions for how easy it is to cast, how long it lasts. Like, it's not a damage spell. It's not as good as the damage spells, and it never will be. But if your tank's having a hard time and you think they might get low, toss a Mana Shield on them. That Mana Shield might just make the difference between life or death for the tank, which in reality means the life or death of the group. You can also Mana Shield yourself. It means you take less damage. When you're low level, you won't notice it. When you're high level, you'll notice it. And it's nice. That's not to say keep it up 24/7. It's not that useful to the point where you do that. The next useful spell would be Pushback. Pushback simply, it interrupts. And it's not like Push 2 where it's hard to cast. Most people can spam this thing after practice. Decurse. It gets rid of poisons. When there's infection and poisons can one-shot you, and you can decurse before the poison even does damage, you can see why that's good. Next is your Fireball. Obviously, it's damage. Who doesn't like damage, man? Greater Affliction. People never use it, really. There's very few mages who use it. But with Affinity, you can stack a total of 10% damage increase for the entire party. And it's a damage over time spell that can do, on crits, 1,000 damage per second with the best gear. What this means is that if you get constant crits throughout the entire Greater Affliction chain, you can stack up to 3 afflictions, you get 30,000 free damage per second for doing nothing. You can sit there. You can twiddle your thumbs. You can go AFK for like 12, 14 seconds, and you'll be doing 30k. It's God. It's a godly spell. Next would be Greater Frostbolt. Not as useful as the previous spells, but when it comes to an affliction rotation and tile sets, it is a really good spell. It does less damage than Fireball, but does a sizable slow, travels the same speed as Fireball, easy to cast, and it's a different rune in Artificing, meaning that it's easier to put together good tile sets with Frost, if you have it in your rotation. I do not believe I missed any spells. If I did, I will put them in like an addendum or something along those lines. But I do believe that those are the main spells in the rituals. Now, those are my opinions on the spells. You can weigh some higher than others. Depends on what you want to do with it. What matters is what to practice. You want to practice all the spells. You want to get good at all of them because you want to be able to spam all of them so you can flex on people and say, I'm better than you. That's the goal. But if you're going for pure optimal gameplay, practice your Fireball first, Affliction second, Frost third. Actually, scratch that. Fireball first. Primary, very primary. Affliction second if you plan on going a rotation mage. Otherwise, do something like Decurse. By then, you want to do Frost, and then if you are doing rotation, do Decurse next, and then Mana Shield. Let's be honest, you already have Mana Shield mastered by this point. You don't need to practice it. But the spells you need to keep down pat: Decurse, Fireball, Frost, Affliction. Those are the ones you need to know. Practice to death. Practice them in dungeons. Practice them by yourself in high steps. Spam cast, telecast, anything. Do anything and everything to master Mage. Thank you for watching, and please remember to practice your Affliction, your Frost, and your Fireball.